I want to get your take on something else. Trump's envoy, Witkoff, is going to Moscow. He's already in Moscow, actually. I'm fascinated by this because either one or two things is happening. Either Trump has accepted the terms that Russia wants and just hasn't said it. And Witkoff is kind of like ironing out the details. Or Witkoff is going with a ridiculous ultimatum about a ceasefire, which is never going to be accepted. I don't know which one it is, right? Because Donald Trump is a goofball. It could be either one. So Axios is reporting that Witkoff is in Moscow. He's having conversations with Putin. And according to Axios, it says Moscow talks are crucial to Trump's efforts to secure a 30-day ceasefire in the war with Russia and Ukraine. Okay, well, the only reason you would want a ceasefire is to reload Ukraine with weapons, give the military time to rest because they are effectively on the brink of collapse. Russia is about to have an offensive with the notion of finish them off. That is the entire point of that offensive that seems to be gearing up. Russia's pushing on all fronts. They're even in the Sumy region at this point. Kursk is nearly done. And so Trump may be looking at this saying, oh my God, the Ukrainian military is going to collapse. This is now a desperate time frame. And so I need a 30-day ceasefire. Russia has no reason to accept a ceasefire since they're winning and pushing on all fronts, on like a 2,000-kilometer front. They have no reason to do so. They are about to introduce hundreds of thousands of men that will free up hundreds of thousands of men to go for that major push. Ukraine is running out of weapons, they're running out of manpower and materials. What are your thoughts on this? What do you think is taking place here? Because I got to be honest, I'm not quite sure. And many of the people who I bring on to talk to, they would say the same thing. We have no idea what is taking place with us.
Well, luckily, I know exactly what's going to happen because Pete Hegseth told us all what was going to happen in February, February 12th. He was in Brussels and he laid out the entire plan. They're going to freeze the conflict. They're going to move European troops in to permanently freeze it, like Syria-style freezing of the conflict.
Just to interrupt, Russia is not going to allow that. This is not Syria. Meaning,
exactly, yes,
didn't have that capability. Putin has already said that's a no-go. Our military is going to keep going. You can't do anything about
it. Exactly, but say Witkoff is going to Moscow and he will just offer Russia everything with it in mind that they're going to complete the second the ceasefire starts. Those European troops are going to come in, and they've already played this professional wrestling reality TV drama where the U.S. hates Europe and Europe hates the U.S. This is the plan because again, Secretary Hegseth laid it out. He said we're going to have a ceasefire. As soon as the ceasefire is in effect, we're going to have European troops go in on the ground, and they're gonna that's going to be the freezing of the conflict. And then and then he said, what else did he say in Brussels? He said we're going to all rearm. We're going to expand our military industrial base for what? For what purpose? Why are you expanding your military industrial base unless you intend to continue this at a later date? So, and they're going to double down. And he told them literally double down on supporting Ukraine. So that's the plan. It's Minsk 3 plus a Syria-style freeze of the conflict so that they can win at a later date because right now they're losing, which is exactly what they did in Syria. They were losing, they froze it until conditions changed to an extent where they could win. And that is exactly what they're trying to foist upon Russia right now.
What that means, though, is that Russia is going to go to the border of Poland. That's what that means. Because, look, I think they think they're too clever, right? They believe they're more clever than the way they think they are. Russia doesn't trust the West. They don't trust Donald Trump, whatever Trump says. And if Putin is not going to get what he actually wants, he's going to keep going. They're just going to keep going inexorably to the West. If Donald Trump wants to have a nuclear war over it, okay. But from the Russian point of view, we don't trust you. I mean, we're not accepting anything that you offer short of exactly the things that we want. And we want it in the context of an international agreement and deal. Otherwise, we keep going. If it's those two items, That is terrifying. Because what that means, and the reason why I said that's terrifying is that means Trump is out to lunch. That means Witkoff is out to lunch. That means they're not understanding the way that the Russians are perceiving this. The Russians know that the US have been directing all of these events on the ground. And so the party that was directing events is the lead negotiator. Okay, well, that's nonsense on its face. And so, from their point of view, you've killed 100,000 to 200,000 Russians. Full stop. We know you did it. We may not say that because we're stuck with the reality of it if we say it. Meaning, the moment that we say that, our public is going to be demanding blood. And we don't want to get into a nuclear war. So, we will have these negotiations if indeed we can get what we want out of these negotiations. I suspect Trump realizes well, the Russians are dragging it on because the Russians are winning on the battlefield. Okay, that may be true, but they're not accepting anything less than what they want, considering in their mind they won the war. Like that's terrifying to me because I don't know where
Yes.
that goes at that point.
And I'm not so sure how far Russia wants to go or how far they can go, but I do think that they're just dragging this out and they're just pretending to be interested. They want to appear diplomatic. If there was a way to resolve this diplomatically, of course they would love to do that. They understand this. With the United States, it's impossible because they're bad faith actors. They are waging war against Russia using Ukraine, and they're posing as a mediator between Russia and Ukraine. That is psychotic. That is
Yeah.
so dishonest, so duplicitous on so many levels. And for anyone to think that Russia would take them seriously, I just don't know. I don't know what to say about that. What I would say, though, is Russia is pragmatic. And just like they agreed to Minsk 1 and 2, they kind of had to. I don't think that they were actually tricked. I'm pretty sure they understood. But they felt at that time they could use that time more effectively, efficiently, than the collective West could. They were not prepared for a war like this then. As they became prepared, that's when the gears started moving in preparation for the special military operation. There's a possibility that if they feel like they can freeze this, if it's frozen, and they could use time better than they think the collective West can, and they have a plan with Iran and China. I mean, we shouldn't think that they always have a plan and they can fix everything, because again, that goes back to Syria.
Mhm.
But there is a possibility that maybe they might. We don't know how really overextended or not they are in terms of this conflict. We see them winning on the battlefield. We see it is a war of attrition. We understand that at a certain point, Ukraine's military is going to collapse faster. And it already is. It's collapsing faster and faster. It's just happening in slow motion. And you don't need to fight for every inch of Ukraine. Eventually, everything will collapse and you will just take over the rest of Ukraine, just like they took over Syria, to
Right.
be honest. So we have to keep all of these factors in mind, and we just kind of have to wait and see how things play out.
I guess my thing is Syria is a bellwether. Like Russia saw what happened in Syria. They saw what frozen conflicts can spring up when you're at your worst. And I get the sense that Putin, in a similar way that Zelensky has kind of accepted this kind of war mentality that he is in, I think Putin has accepted my job as Russia is to preserve the integrity of the state. And I want this country to be safe before I leave this planet. And in doing so, he's like, I want to solve this. I've spent all of this blood and treasure on it. I want to resolve it. I don't want a frozen conflict. I don't want this to spring up in 10 years. I want this settled. Even if it's a nasty, dirty settlement where we have to effectively take the state of Ukraine and fight a guerrilla war in the West. Like, I think from their point of view, it's existential. I could be wrong. I'm saying that because this is on their border and they know that the countries that they're dealing with have knocked over Syria, Iraq, have invaded Afghanistan, was running dirty wars in South America, knocked over the government of Iran. Like there's a track record of behavior of the country that is effectively trying to take them over, where, in their minds, this is existential. This is existential. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. I could be wrong. Last story, Iran. You wrote this. Trump's threat against Iran are a continuity. And I love this article. I love this article because I think you're 1000% right. I played this Wesley Clark clip once. I'm going to play it one more time just for the audience, just so they can see it. And this is Wesley Clark, what it was like 2001 or something to that effect, 2002 or 2007, I'm sorry. Either Wesley Clark is a psychic or Wesley Clark was actually just reporting the reality of the plan, of the war plan.
Got to come in and talk to me a second. I said, well, you're too busy. He said, no. He says, we've made the decision. We're going to war with Iraq. This was on or about the 20th of September. I said, we're going to war with Iraq. Why? He said, I don't know. He said, I guess they don't know what else to do. So I said, well, did they find some information connecting Saddam to Al-Qaeda? He said, no. He says, there's nothing new that way. They've just made the decision to go to war with Iraq. He said, I guess it's like we don't know what to do about terrorists, but we've got a good military and we can take down governments. And he said, I guess if the only tool you have is a hammer, every problem has to look like a nail. So I came back to see him a few weeks later, and by that time we were bombing in Afghanistan. I said, are we still going to war with Iraq? And he said, oh, it's worse than that. He said, he reached over on his desk, he picked up a piece of paper, and he said, I just got this down from upstairs, meaning the Secretary of Defense's office today, and he said, this is a memo that describes how we're going to take out 7 countries in 5 years, starting with Iraq and then Syria, Lebanon, Libya, Somalia, Sudan, and finishing off Iran.
Finishing off with Iran. And from my point of view, that continuity has taken place. It's not even just my point of view. It is literal in regards to the way the world maps have effectively changed, with the U.S. either invading or destroying country after country after country. Even Sudan right now is a basket case. Iran is the last man standing. And now you have a president full of Zionists, rabid, batshit crazy Zionists that are looking at Iran, licking their chops. Netanyahu, after this conversation with Donald Trump, came out and said, well, we're going to use the Libyan option with Iran. That seems to be the plan for Iran. Now, that is a dog whistle, right? Everybody knows what happened to Libya. They gave up their nukes. After they gave up their nukes, we sent in a bunch of jihadists. Gaddafi responded. We ended up doing airstrikes. This ended up overthrowing Gaddafi. Gaddafi was dragged out, bleeding, bloody, beaten, and sodomized with a machete, with Hillary Clinton thinking it is the most funniest thing in the world. We came, we saw, he died. And he's saying that in the context of Iran. Now, I know some people are hopeful in these negotiations. I am not. I think ultimately anything that they negotiate is purely for the purpose of weakening Iran in a way that would allow it to be toppled at some point or some later date, if not now. Meaning Trump could say, well, I want the ballistic missiles. I mean, after all, he's negotiating from a position of quote unquote dominance and threats in the way that he's going after them. It's not, hey, let's have a conversation and come to some terms. It's not that. It's, if you don't do what I tell you to do, I'm going to bomb you. I'm going to attack you. I'm going to destroy you. And you have some simps out here talking about, well, there's going to be an unprovoked nuclear war by the United States that's going to decimate a country of 90 million people. And so Iran should just, bend over and take whatever Donald Trump gives. Okay, I think that's whacked out. Now, the notion that Iran is not going to have the ability to respond, or they're not going to have the ability to counterattack, I think is outrageous. I think they will counterattack. I think that also underplays the effects on the globe, or for that matter, even the United States, if indeed they respond and oil prices go to some ridiculous amount, or the 50, 60,000 troops go away, because at that point it becomes an existential attack on the integrity of the country itself, in which case all bets are off in regards to Iran's response. One last point. The security agreement with Russia, I really think, is a warning to the U.S. Not that Russia would get militarily involved, but they will give support in the way that they can give support in order to maintain the integrity of the state, because the integrity of Iran, on some level, also assists with the integrity of Russia. Give me your take on this. I don't think these negotiations are done with clean hands, nor do I think you can trust anything that comes out of these negotiations. What are your
Now,
thoughts?
exactly. There's nothing that you can negotiate with the U.S. that is worth anything. What Iran would do is use negotiations to buy time and maneuver as conditions on the ground change. It's interesting that the people talking about the U.S. unilaterally carpet bombing Iran with nuclear weapons were the same people that said, "Well, we dodged a bullet. If Kamala Harris was president, we'd see
Yeah.
mushroom clouds." Well, and it seems like we're going to see mushroom clouds either way, according to these people. But you were talking before about Russia and how it's existential, and you're absolutely right. It is existential to them. It is existential to Iran, and it is existential to China. This isn't about Iran and these 6 other countries the U.S. overthrew. That is a step in encircling and containing all of Eurasia, including Russia, including China. These are stepping stones on the way to global primacy. This is all predicated on establishing American primacy, or reestablishing it and maintaining it and expanding it. So this is why they are so interested in Iran. If you look at Iran, its position on a map, I mean, is like kind of in the middle between Russia, Western Russia. You have Iran, and then you have China. Also, hydrocarbons are flowing from the Middle East to China. Those are essential for the Chinese economy. If the United States is interested in strangling China economically, not only are they going to do it with these maritime choke points, they will also do it by destabilizing the Middle East and stopping the flow of hydrocarbons to the Chinese economy. So wouldn't a war, no matter how it turns out, with Iran, fought in the Persian Gulf, fought in the Red Sea, wouldn't this be a great way of disrupting the flow of hydrocarbons to China? So all of this is interconnected. This is why Russia and China are supporting Iran. This is why Iran is supporting Russia and China. This is why many other nations in between are increasingly involved in this. Because even though you don't really hear about it, I mentioned Myanmar earlier. I'm here in Thailand. All of these countries are targeted by U.S. interference, attempted regime change, dirty wars, terrorism, either in the past, or the threat is always looming of military force or force by proxy. And so the whole world has been held hostage by Western hegemony for generations. And there is now this opportunity for an alternative, and people are paying into it, and they're working to try to achieve that. And Iran, it's not just Iran. If Iran collapses, if the U.S. is successful in collapsing Iran, it's going to make it easier for the U.S. to do this elsewhere against others. And so I hope the multipolar world understands that. It seems like they do, and they act accordingly. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. I was gonna thank you for this, man. I really do appreciate it. Fantastic analysis. I really do appreciate you joining me. I know this was at the last minute.
Sure.
Brian Berletic. He is a Bangkok-based geopolitical researcher and writer, former U.S. Marine officer, former U.S. Marine,
Enlisted, yes.
enlisted. I hope this wasn't too painful. I would love for you to come back. You are a fantastic guest. Your knowledge of this stuff is just mind-blowing, and I appreciate you and your show, man. Where can people find you, Brian?
Just look up the New Atlas on YouTube, and then in the video description, you will find all the other places where I post my work, X, Telegram, and elsewhere.
Thank you for this. You be safe,
And
man.
thank
Have
you.
a good one.
Yes. Okay.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. He is fantastic. He is